What happens when royalty meets resistance, live on national television. Tonight, we're unpacking the brutal showdown between Prince Harry and Jon Stewart that ended in a way no one could have predicted. Security rushing in, cameras rolling, and Stewart doing something he's never done in over 2 decades of hosting. Physically removing a guest from the set. If you thought things were tense before, you haven't seen anything yet. Before we dive into this chaotic spiral of egos, accusations, and royal rage, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The cameras rolled, the lights dimmed slightly. The Daily Show theme played over the speakers as Jon Stewart stepped onto the set with his usual sharp grin. The crowd roared with excitement, not just for Stewart, but for tonight's special guest, Prince Harry, a royal-turned-content creator, a symbol of both modern rebellion and controversy. As Harry walked onto the stage, he smiled and waved politely. To the audience, he wore a light blue button-down shirt, sleeves rolled just above the wrist, paired with dark jeans and polished boots. It was the kind of outfit meant to say, "I am just like you," even though everyone in the room knew he was not. He took his seat beside Stewart with a practiced ease, but there was something about his posture, a little too upright. Shoulders just a bit too tight. He was trying to appear relaxed, but anyone paying attention could tell he was bracing for something. Stewart leaned in with that familiar glint in his eye, the one longtime viewers knew always meant trouble. That look had brought down politicians, CEOs, and clueless celebrities. Tonight, it had found royalty. "Prince Harry," Stewart said, dragging the name out slightly for effect. "Welcome to the show. You have been busy. How does it feel, going from cutting royal ribbons to cutting Netflix trailers?" The audience chuckled. Harry let out a short laugh, but it did not quite reach his eyes. He adjusted in his seat, smiling politely. "Well, I think it is a bit more meaningful than that," he said. "My wife and I are trying to tell stories that matter, that help people." "Oh, meaningful," Stewart said, eyebrows raised. "Of course, I saw the documentary. Very moving. Especially the part where you talked about the trauma of having to live in a mansion in Montecito while talking about the cruelty of the monarchy. That was powerful stuff." The crowd laughed again, louder this time, but the mood shifted slightly. Harry's smile tightened, his fingers curled around the edge of his chair. For a moment, he did not answer, and that silence said more than his words ever could. This was not going to be a normal interview. Stewart leaned back in his chair, tapping the cue cards lightly against his knee. The crowd was still chuckling, but he was watching Harry now, closely. That playful smirk never left his face, but his tone shifted just a little. "So let me ask you this, Harry, the Netflix deal. You say it is about telling meaningful stories, right? Uplifting voices, important causes, but let us be honest. The first thing you put out was a documentary about your family, your royal drama, your side of the palace fallout. That is not exactly Gandhi." A few audience members laughed again, but this time it was mixed with an awkward pause. Stewart was smiling, but the air was thinner. He knew exactly where he was steering this conversation. Harry sat up straighter, his jaw tensed. He gave a small shake of the head and leaned toward the host. "That documentary was our truth," he said, "our side of years of silence, smear campaigns, and targeted press manipulation. We lived through that, and we wanted people to understand what really happened behind closed doors." Stewart nodded slowly, then lifted his hand as if holding an invisible scale. "I get that, but you have to see how strange it looks, right? You leave the royal family because of the media circus, and then sign a $100 million deal to put your personal drama on display. It is like quitting the circus, but selling front-row tickets to your own tent." The laughter hit harder that time, and it lingered. Harry did not laugh. He blinked and looked down for a moment. Then he looked up, voice more measured, but his eyes sharper. "There is a difference between being hunted by the press and choosing to tell your story on your own terms. This was never about money. It was about control, about dignity." Stewart kept the smile, but his eyes flickered for a second. The tension had cracked open. Just a little, enough for everyone to feel it, and the audience felt it too. You could sense the split. Some nodded along with Harry. Others were still grinning at Stewart's punchlines. If you are still watching, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. Do you think Stewart was being fair here, or did he cross the line? Because from this point on, things were only going to heat up. Jon leaned in again, this time setting the cue cards down entirely. His voice dropped slightly, less joking now, but still sharp. "Look, I respect your story, Harry, truly, but there is something I want to unpack. You keep saying our truth. That phrase comes up a lot. In interviews, in the docuseries, even in your book. But what does that really mean? Because the world does not run on personal truths. It runs on facts. And when you take personal pain and turn it into content, is it still truth, or is it strategy?" Harry's expression shifted. His lips pressed together for a moment, and then he spoke carefully. "It is both. My wife and I have lived through years of abuse from the media, from inside the institution itself. Speaking out was not about spin, it was about survival. And beyond the interviews and documentaries, I have spent years working on real causes, mental health, veterans, welfare. My work in Afghanistan was not for headlines, it was service. The crowd gave a small round of applause. Some clapped louder, a few stayed silent. Jon nodded with real acknowledgement. Your military service is admirable, no one can take that away. But that is part of the problem. You did real things. But now, it feels like everything comes with a camera crew. Like every step is branded. Every cause has a logo, a photo op, a viral quote. Harry blinked, caught off guard. He let out a small breath, then leaned forward. You think I wanted to become a brand? You think I wanted to market grief? That was never the plan. It was forced on us. The moment we were born into that family, our lives were currency. All we have done is try to take that power back. Jon stayed quiet for a moment, then shrugged, slightly. But are you taking the power back, or just repackaging it for your benefit? I mean, when you say you want privacy, and then sign a book deal to talk about your frostbitten, never mind. It gets confusing. Laughter from the audience broke the tension slightly, but the sting was there. Harry chuckled stiffly, but did not smile with his eyes. He looked down, then back at Jon. There is a difference between privacy and silence. Between being quiet and being voiceless. Jon nodded, serious again. Fair point. But people are starting to wonder if your voice is being used to help, or just to stay relevant. And that was the question hanging in the air. Not just between the two men, but in the minds of everyone watching. Jon sat forward, no longer smiling. The room was quiet now. Everyone could feel it shifting. So let us talk about your mother, he said, Princess Diana. Harry's face changed instantly. The tension in his jaw was back. He nodded once, slowly. She was the reason I walked away, he said. Because I saw the same patterns. The press hounded her. They fed off her pain, and they killed her. The audience stayed silent. Even Jon did not interrupt. Harry went on, his voice firm. And when Meghan started going through the same things, when I saw the same headlines, the same threats, I realized nothing had changed. We had to protect our family. I could not let history repeat itself. Jon took a deep breath. He paused. Then he spoke with a lower tone. I believe you when you say that. I believe your pain is real. But at some point, Harry, you have to ask. If bringing up Diana again and again is helping people understand, or just keeping the wound open. Harry's head snapped slightly. His eyes narrowed. She was my mother, he said. That is not a wound that just closes. I get that. Jon replied, gently. But is it possible that her memory is becoming a shield? That it is used to shut down criticism? To win sympathy? You talk about moving forward, but every interview, every headline circles back to her. A murmur went through the audience. Some people gasped. One person near the front shook their head. The mood had changed. Terry leaned back in his chair, visibly stunned. So I am not allowed to talk about the person who meant the most to me, he asked. Is that what this is? No, Jon said, but maybe it is time to honor her by stepping out of her shadow. Not just pointing fingers, but showing a new path. For the first time, Harry looked lost for words. He blinked, then looked down at his hands. The silence stretched out, and in that moment, it felt like the whole room was holding its breath. This was no longer an interview. It had become something raw, something deeply personal, and no one knew what would happen next. Prince Harry stood up so fast that his chair screeched against the studio floor. The sound cut through the room, sharp and sudden. The audience flinched. Everyone froze. His face was red now, jaw locked, eyes burning. I have taken enough, Harry said. You sit here, laughing at my family, twisting everything. This is not journalism, it is entertainment, cheap shots for ratings. Jon stayed seated, hands folded on the desk.com but intense. Then why come on the show, he asked. Why keep doing these tours, these interviews, these books, if it is all so toxic? Why keep dragging it all out into the spotlight if the spotlight is what you say ruined your life? Harry's voice rose because it is the only way to tell the truth, my truth. Not your version, not the tabloids, mine. Jon leaned forward, his tone sharper now. But is it truth or revenge? Because from the outside, it looks like you are not just stepping away from the palace, you are setting it on fire and filming it in slow motion. The Oprah interview, the book, the Netflix deal. At some point, it starts to look like you want the crown to burn. Harry slammed his hand down on the desk. The sound echoed. Say that again, he snapped. Say it to my face. The audience gasped. Some people clapped. Others went quiet. It was no longer a show. It was a showdown. Jon held his ground. I just did, he said. Two security guards at the edge of the stage stepped forward. They did not move fast, but the message was clear. Things were getting out of control. Harry turned and looked at them, then back at Jon. He was breathing hard now. His hands were shaking. You have no idea what it is like, he said. To have your life picked apart. your wife threatened, your kids dragged into headlines before they can even walk. Jon's voice softened, but he did not back off. I am not saying you have not suffered. I am saying you cannot have it both ways. You cannot call for privacy while selling every detail. That is not healing. That is a brand. The tension was unbearable. The audience was dead silent. Harry stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, he stepped back from the desk. His expression was unreadable now. No one moved. No one knew what he would do next, and that silence said everything. Jon Stewart took a deep breath. His eyes locked on Harry's, calm but cold. There was a pause, thick enough to cut. Then came the words that sent the whole room into a tailspin. You were not Diana. That was it. 4 words. But they hit like a freight train. Harry's mouth opened slightly. His whole body froze for half a second. Then he stepped forward and shoved Jon. Not a punch, not a hit, just a push, but enough to make Jon lean back in. His chair and the audience collectively gasped. Jon raised his hands slowly. His voice was quiet but clear. Did you just put your hands on me? Harry's face was flushed. His lips were tight. His chest moved fast as he breathed. He looked like he was trying to hold back more than just words. The room was chaos now. Some people in the audience stood up. Others shouted. Phones were already out. Lights were flashing. A stage manager in a headset was waving from the wings. Producers were scrambling. Jon adjusted his tie. He stayed in his chair, looking dead into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, this is what happens when a royal tantrum meets real questions. You throw a book at the world, tell your side, and when someone asks about the other side, you push them. He pointed at Harry, who had now backed away slightly, clearly shaken. This is not strength. This is not bravery, and it is definitely not Diana. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some booed, but no one looked away. Harry stood there, stunned. His team rushed toward the stage. One staffer whispered in his ear. Another tried to calm him down. But the damage was already done. Jon looked straight ahead again, voice steady, eyes sharp. I asked tough questions. That is my job. But the moment you raise your hand because you do not like the heat, the whole message falls apart. The tension was unreal. The control room was already cutting feeds, blurring angles, scrambling to make sense of what just happened. Harry walked off the stage. No goodbye, no handshake, just silence behind him. Jon leaned back slightly in his chair. Then, into the camera, he said, we will be right back. But everyone watching knew that nothing would be the same when they returned. Security had stepped in fast. 2 guards were already between Harry and Jon, guiding him toward the back of the stage. Harry resisted at first, waving his hand and trying to speak over the noise. He turned to the crowd, his voice cracking from the tension. This is what they do. This is what institutional media has always done. Twist, provoke, and then act like the victim when someone finally pushes back. He pointed at Jon as he said it, but the energy in the room had changed. The shock was wearing off, and people were starting to see the whole picture more clearly. Jon stayed seated, calm, composed. He looked at Harry, then looked to the camera. Prince Harry, he said slowly, you came here to talk about truth, healing, and accountability. But the moment that truth got uncomfortable, you blamed everyone else. Harry opened his mouth again, but security was already leading him off stage. The cameras did not cut. No commercial break. No soft fade. Jon looked down for a moment, then back up. I grew up watching a family who smiled through pain, who kept things quiet, who tried to hold it together. Maybe that was not always right, but turning that pain into profit, then attacking anyone who questions it. That is not how healing works. The audience was quiet now. No more yelling. Just a thick silence. The kind that follows a storm. Tari had disappeared backstage. The crew stood frozen. Producers whispered in headsets, unsure what to do next. Jon leaned into his desk. He gave one last glance to the crowd, then to the camera. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time. No music. No applause. Just a hard cut to black. And just like that, the most talked about interview in years ended with a silence that said more than any speech ever could. So, that was it. The moment everyone was talking about Prince Harry storming off the Daily Show stage. Jon Stewart, refusing to back down. Words turned sharp, emotions flared. And then, a push that made TV history. Now here is the question. Was Jon too harsh? Or was he just being brutally honest? Some people say he did what good journalists do. Ask the hard questions. Refuse to let anyone, even royalty, hide behind rehearsed answers. But others say he crossed the line. That he went after Harry too personally. That bringing up Princess Diana like that was cheap and cruel. And what about Harry? Was his reaction human? Understandable, a man defending his mother, his past, his choices. Or did he lose control on national television, proving exactly what his critics say, that he is not ready for real pushback? Honestly, this one will split people. Some will stand with Jon, some with Harry, and some will just be stunned that it all happened live on air. But now, we want to hear from you. Who do you believe? Who went too far? Let us know in the comments. Because your take might be the one that flips the whole story. And if you enjoy these raw, behind-the-curtain moments where celebrities clash, media breaks, and things get way too real, then make sure you stick around. There are more episodes coming, more clashes, more breakdowns, and a lot more surprises. So hit that like button, leave your thoughts below, and if you have not already, make sure to subscribe for more jaw-dropping interview breakdowns just like this one. Because trust us, things are just getting started.